Okay, y'all. So we're continuing this conversation here. Just watched a video prior about cybersecurity on the continent of Africa. There was a gentleman who started a company called Cybastion, if I am pronouncing it correctly. Before I actually get into this next video, I do want to see here, see if we can get some more information. That video was about a year and some change old because it was speaking about Joe Biden as being president. I think that was the U.S. administration working with their local governments within there and the private sector on trying to bring more attention and more information and more teaching on that issue to be better prepared in the future for the different fluctuations within cybersecurity and the surrounding ventures that encompass it. He was also speaking about things like insurance, what that means as well with respect to cybersecurity. So I wanted to see what we got here. Asian, African, can I spell cyber security? Let's see what's going on. Census cybersecurity programs. Yeah, what is this? What is this? What's going on here? So we got Cybastion here. I believe that was, I don't know if it was his company. He was saying this is the company that he's working with. Let me see if they got a. They don't have an. Oh, they do have an about us. Let's see. Oh, so it's an American company. Excuse me from last time. It's an American company. So Cybastion is an American technology company that delivers world-class digital solutions to accelerate digital transformation in Africa. Now, some people say, duh, you didn't know this. Well, once again, I don't know every business venture. That's why, part of this podcast is to speak on things in real time. My expertise is that I am a grassroots business developer and I love to do research. So you're seeing me do research in real time. That's what I like to do. So I'm bringing y'all on this particular journey. And for those of you who are new to this channel, my focus as a director for the company Wakazi Holdings Limited. This is a Wakazi United Podcast where we are speaking about the different ventures coming out of Tanzania, East Africa, as well as surrounding countries and building a bridge from that side of the world to others, especially here in the Western Hemisphere where I am currently located in the U.S. My partners stem from me as well as the Caribbean, so the U.S., the Caribbean, and as well as people in TZ and other places in East Africa that we communicate with, work with, and have business relationships as well. So just for those who are tuning in. So yeah, so this is an American company that apparently is trying to do some research and development on the continent of Africa, in several different countries that was listed. I'm not sure if they have some listed here, but I wanted to see if there were any updates from that. Our mission is to empower Africa's digital future. Okay, well, that's great, right? Talks about the history here, founded by there's the founder. Name here, I probably will not be. I'm not going to butcher this man's name at all. But you can see that name there as the founder. I'm bad with names, y'all. Please forgive me. Work with me here. Work with me here. Okay, I just didn't know if they had any other updates, but this is the company. So, I may. What's this side base, and so y'all can look into that. I guess maybe do developments. Cybastion is not what I. Boy, autocorrect. It's not like this name, huh? This is the gentleman we saw in the last video here. Delivering digital cybersecurity. happens. What is this? This is still about a year ago. Well, this ain't too far down the road. I'm currently recording this in May. That video was about 6 months ago. The world's fastest growing digital market, yet the continent recorded an increase of over 20% in cyber attacks in 2024. Wow. Cites Interpol. Oh man, that can happen for sure. I mean, it's the path of least resistance if you're not prepared. Definitely Africa's world's fastest growing digital market. They have a TED Talk, okay. Doesn't really give much information here, so we'll see how that goes. But let's go back to where was I? Yeah, let's see what we're going. This is my first time watching this video. Here's another one. It says focus on transformation to trust, cybersecurity, and Africa's payment ecosystem. This is also about 6 months ago, so it's been a strong conversation based off this. Let's see. It's 13 minutes long. We're not going to watch the whole video. Obviously, I'll leave a link here for those who want to watch it. But let's see how it starts here.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Focus On with me, Giamo Mosipili. Africa's digital payments economy is expected to reach 1.5 trillion US dollars by the year 2030. And as the continent, in line with the rest of the globe, accelerates its digital transformation, trust and resilience through cybersecurity in the payments ecosystem has never been more important. Joining me for more on this is Johan Gerber, the MasterCard Global Head of Security Solutions, who will share insights on how MasterCard is working with governments, businesses, innovators to strengthen cyber resilience, protect payment ecosystems, and enable secure growth across Africa. So thanks so much for your time, and more importantly, welcome to the show. I briefly got into the importance of why Africa's digital economy is important and is on the rise, but I guess I'd like to circle back to your focal point. Why is cybersecurity so important in this space, and how instrumental is it to safeguarding Africa's economies?
So just real quick, as you can see how they are labeling this interaction. This is with MasterCard, very powerful processor of currency, especially in regards to the digital market. The only other one you would say would be in the same conversation would be Visa. There are others, but I would say Visa and MasterCard is probably your your go-to money processors when you're traveling as well. I myself have used, whether it be a debit card or so, both as that processor in my travels in Asia and on the continent of Africa. So it might be a few biases with his conversation, but nonetheless, I am also interested to hear what his thoughts are on that, because as tourism increases, as the technology changes and shifts, it's interesting to see what has been taken into consideration to add another layer of protection for those traveling, and to add to other economies on the other side of the world with respect to e-commerce. So this is going to be an interesting exchange. Like I said, I'm not going to play the whole video, but I want to see what we can get from it as the discussion moves forward.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having us. This is such an important topic for us, and in one word, it's all about opportunity. Frankly, this is so important for us for growth. You know, security by design is a fundamental construct that you need for sustained growth across an economy. And I'll maybe just to illustrate this for you a little bit and give you some context. There are three very important data points here. First of all, Africa has the youngest population in the world. 60% of our population here is below the age of 25. In fact, the median age is like 19. So you've got a strong group of very young people. In fact, by 2035, there will be more Africans entering the workforce than the rest of the world combined. So you've got a very...
Did y'all hear what he just said? Now, once again, fact check this guy now. Fact check him. I believe he's on the money though. I really believe he's on the money. This is my first time hearing these particular statistics. As I mentioned before, us doing business in Tanzania, we have probably one of the youngest in population size countries. I'm not speaking on the age of the country. I'm speaking on the demographic. We have the youngest demographic of people. If not the youngest, definitely I believe in the top 3 youngest demographic of people there. So what he's saying is definitely spot on. And so the education and influence of those people, especially going to the work, going into the job market, definitely will be a watershed movement in the sense that, well, what are they going to be studying? You know, that really is going to show what the pivot of Africa's future in general, not just NTZ, but all of the continent. Because as he said, demographically speaking, there are, wow, he said the median age is 19. That is mind blowing. So it's most people are pretty much in college right now, in college age. If they're going to university, are definitely getting into some type of a trade if they haven't already started, maybe at a younger age. A lot of times they start at much earlier than possibly other Western countries, which is not too uncommon, of course. But then in some cases they may start a little bit later. It just always depends on the family structure. But let's see what else he has to say.
Strong, young, upcoming workforce that are there. Second of all, internet connectivity has grown from about 30%, roughly about 30% back in 2020, to now already about 50%, 50. And it's currently growing at about 20% year over year. So this could almost double by within the next 5 years, which is a phenomenal area. Then if we look at payments, 90% of payments across the continent is still made in cash. So if you think about, you've got a strong workforce, you've got this trend of technology entering the continent with a vast opportunity. How do we maximize our ability as a continent to benefit from this technology advancements that are there and grabs those benefits for society to uplift the entire society out there? So if we don't put security in by design, you know, and the first entrant that you make into this economy is that of a scam or some sort of a cyber breach, then we may lose the trust of the people. So the trust is fundamental. And of course, this comes in addition to, we need to educate our workforce, you know, we need to make sure we care for them. We need government policy frameworks to allow innovation to happen. All of those things are important as well, but security is so important. And Africa is right on this cusp where we've got this wonderful opportunity ahead of us, and we want to make sure that sustained growth and benefit is there for the continent.
He said a lot there. One thing I want to definitely come back to, which is interesting. He said 90% is a cash-based economy. When I tell you, when you take an African, I don't care what the country is, you take an African, you put them into a country that is used to credit and they're hardworking. Let's say this particular individual is, you know, they will run circles around you. They will run circles around you. Why? Because they're not used to credit. Everything has to get paid in cash. Now, I know he's mentioning this with respect to utilizing, you know, card payments and money transfers and things like in TZ they have M-Pesa and things of that nature. But it's something to keep in mind, because with that being said, they're not partially probably speaking about credit cards with respect to MasterCard, since this is what he's representing, more than like debit cards. Like I said, I've used debit cards in my travels and not credit cards. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just am pretty much myself on a cash basis situation, so I'm very familiar with it. I personally like paying cash for most things, anywhere using debit. Credit is definitely useful to leverage, especially more in a business setting, but I think with personal expenditures, it's something I think the West takes advantage of a little too much, and there's big issue with that because a lot of our debt is associated with credit card debt. At least in the US, I'm pretty sure it's similar throughout different nations on the continent of Europe, and also Canada and probably Australia, you know, i.e. Western countries. So I think the bridge that would be an interesting conversation is, getting people from their cash based usage, like physical cash, to utilizing cards and things like that. I think the only way, or one of the biggest segues to that, is what they're already using, such as like M-Pesa, those using their phones to transfer money to one another. Not everybody has a debit card from a bank or things like that, although they do take debit, but many times it's really for the tourists. So if you're speaking more for the actual citizens of these countries, then I wonder what their plan is for that. Now, personally, am I really big on debit cards with respect to cash? I don't want to get into a historical lesson, but if you know, that's kind of how they got us over here in the West. It was, we were in a cash-based society. That's how everybody starts off. A debit card was not a thing, in the early 1900s, right? And during advertisements, propaganda, to be fair, putting cards in the mail, we still see that in the mail today. You get a little debit card like, hey, you got these rewards points and all this other stuff, and that was just kind of get people in the door with using debit cards. And then eventually they started adding on to the credit cards, and then people kind of became, I hate to say it, a slave to the plastic, if you get where I'm coming from. So you got to be a little careful with things like that. I like the fact that they rely on, not spending what they don't have, but I also hate the fact that economy is slowed down by its inability to offer better credit options for a vastness of people. But there is a strong silver lining there. And if you move too quickly, which is maybe one of the things that might unfortunately happen, is the quickness of this, because we're talking about, like I said, technology is greatly increasing, feels like every single day, especially with the rise of AI and things of that nature. So it's kind of like a catch-22. But that was an interesting statistic that he brought up. I'm gonna listen to a little bit more of this conversation. I might move it forward, but let's see what else is going on.
But going back to what you said about the trust and uplifting society, how important is financial inclusion in this space, and what are some of the efforts MasterCard is undertaking to ensure financial inclusion?
This is such a relevant question that you're asking there. I think this is the crux of it. Our youth brings wonderful opportunity with them. They also come with big expectations, right? So we need to make sure that those expectations can be met and these opportunities are there for them. And especially if the African continent wants to benefit from this, we need to provide these jobs, the training, so that they stay here and so that the continent can benefit from them. So I think these are all fundamentally really, really important pieces of this. When it comes to financial inclusion, I've spent the last couple of days, well, actually last week, in Cape Town and in Johannesburg, meeting with several of our fintechs. These are folks who are making a real difference in bringing people into the digital economy. How do I go to a spaza shop and I can take my cash and I can convert it in some sort of a digitized stored place where my money is safe? And now providing that trust at that time is fundamental, because without the trust, why would I trust somebody else to store my money? And then online security is another area that is critically important for us, because not only do I want people to be able to store their money in a place where it's safe and no robber can get to it, when they want to use it, I need to make sure that online security and safety is there for them to use this money as well. So both in terms of the entrance into the ecosystem, and then how do I use the ecosystem to transact now in a digital place, those are all part of financial inclusion for us, and you need to go across that spectrum. So we've invested about $11 billion in security for MasterCard across the globe. Things like cybersecurity. In fact, we acquired a company called Recorded Future very recently, who's all into threat intelligence and providing that security to allow us to understand what are the threat actors doing and how can we protect our ecosystem more safer. We're taking a lot of that intelligence to help our banks, financial institutions, fintechs, smaller companies. So it's a very critically important piece for us to get that right.
So, good response for him in that. Trying to tackle the financial inclusion. I will state that it is true, if you, for one, for a vendor, if you offer or can offer those types of services, it will put you in a much better position moving forward, because this is just kind of how the wave of things is going. They're gonna push this, And when I say push this, it's not that people don't want it either. I caution this because, once again, we here in the West are living in the quote unquote future, if you want to call it like that. And it's not to say that Africa's living in the past. That's not the point, of what I'm saying. And why Africa, first of all, what do you mean by Africa? There's a lot of countries that you walk in, you think you're in Paris or New York, and that's not any hyperbole either. Not every city and country and on the continent are equal. But the fact is, many are not in that arena, and like you mentioned prior, many are still using just general cash basis. So it's really trying to find how to digitalize in a secure manner, and secure manner is the key, because you're not going to feel comfortable knowing that, okay, I put my money, my physical money that I know I could, bury somewhere if I wanted to, or throw it in a safe, and now I put it and it just disappears like magic. And now you're telling me somebody hacked in my account and stole all my life savings like that. That's something for people who aren't used to. Just like it was here in the West, some decades back. Not not too far in the past, was to build that trust, and there was many times where that trust was broken. We have, for example, our banking systems have the FDIC, approves up to, I believe, $250,000 if a theft occurred. Many banks do not do that. That's not a thing, everywhere in the world. So there's definitely going to be some government oversight with this, and I say government oversight because a lot of the banks are also nationalized. At least that's what it is in TZ. I'm sure that's what it is in other countries across the continent. This is the People United Podcast. We are Wakazi